We are wrestling. We are wrestling podcast.
They give a shout out to We Are Wrestling on YouTube.
You're watching We Are Wrestling.
I'm the host with the most.
You are by far the least intelligent.
What's going on, everybody? Danny Huckins here, man. 1/3 of We Are Wrestling.
What's going on? We are Wrestling Maniacs Worldwide. Ben here, the third of the talk show.
We Are Wrestling Podcast.
Make sure to subscribe, baby.
We are wrestling.
What is up? We are Wrestling Maniacs out there worldwide. I'm the host with the most, the best one, Donnie, here with...
What is going on, everybody? Danny Huckins here, man. 1/3 of We Are Wrestling, and obviously, again, man, me and you are riding solo. Ben has some personal stuff going on, but I think me and you are more than capable of taking the reins for this week, man.
I think so as well, Danny. In case you guys don't know, Ben right now is currently moving, and that's why he hasn't been able to be on We Are Wrestling podcast within the last couple weeks. But Ben will be ready for WrestleMania week. You're definitely not going to want to miss here on the We Are Wrestling channel. But before we get into this week's episode, if you're not a We Are Wrestling Maniac yet already, and you're not a part of the thousands of subscribers, the best way to support us is by hitting that subscribe button now, turning on the post notifications. Videos be coming out of nowhere like an RKO, and of course you already know the grind is real. And this week in the wrestling world, we got some pretty interesting topics that we're going to be talking about this week. Danny, how do you feel about these topics before we get into them?
I feel good, man. Especially around this time of year. April, we're heading into April. WrestleMania is like a week away, bro. The wrestling news is just on fire right now. There's just so much going on, and there's so very little time to cover it all. You know what I mean?
Very little time, because there's a lot of things, going on outside of the We Are Wrestling channel. And this week, it's not only WWE stuff that we're going to be talking about. There's some AEW stuff as well that we have to dive into. And our first topic actually is an AEW topic. And there have been reports this week that Goldberg is officially a free agent. And Tony Khan, being the mark that he is for professional wrestling, is interested in Goldberg. So in a recent interview with Adrian Hernandez of The Bet, Las Vegas, and the Sporting Tribune, Khan was asked about it and stated, and I quote, "I have a lot of respect for Bill. I think Bill Goldberg is a great professional athlete and has a great career in pro wrestling. He is a very nice person," Khan stated. Khan continued, "I think he's a household name in pro wrestling, and certainly it's interesting to hear that Bill is a free agent. That's something to follow. He's one of the biggest names in wrestling and certainly will be something else to keep an eye on for us. We have so many great wrestlers in AEW, so many exciting things happening in AEW week to week. That's always exciting time. Bill is an exciting name and one of the biggest names in the sport. Certainly, it's a big thing for us to pay attention to, so I would take notice of it." How do you feel about AEW potentially getting Goldberg a part of their program? Because before AEW and before, WWE, Goldberg, became the famous Goldberg in WCW, which was actually tied in with Turner's network on TNT. How do you feel about these reports, Danny?
So I read these reports a couple days ago, and everybody was going stir crazy once TK was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna keep an eye on his his free agent status or whatever." I don't really have too many thoughts on it. I think that Goldberg at this stage in his life is going to go to AEW? Absolutely not. From what I know, he wanted one last match in WWE, as sort of like a retirement, sort of as his send off. So the idea or the notion of him, you know, signing with a brand new company for one match or whatever it is, like I don't necessarily think that's a possibility, or some, even not even if it's a possibility, but something that he really wants to do. You know, he was very hesitant to go back to WWE, but you know, his wife and his son never got to see him perform, and that's why he ended up going back in the first place. So you know, he has a lot of ties within WWE. I don't know how close or even if Tony Khan and Goldberg even know each other. Um, I just, even though he's keeping an eye on it and it's something interesting to him, you know, everybody knows TK is a massive fan. You know, he always talks about, you know, when he was a kid going to the ECW arena, and you know, he's just a huge fan of pro wrestling. Um, but I don't think he was initially saying like, yeah, we're gonna sign Goldberg to, you know, a contract. I don't think that's in the works at all. So calm down, everybody out there wondering. I don't think it's gonna happen.
Now, here's my opinion on this, and I think that this cannot just be thrown out of the picture here. I think that there's some things that we really do need to consider when it comes to Goldberg. I think there is a possibility that Goldberg does have his last match in AEW because, one, Tony Khan is a mark, just like, you know, all of us, we are wrestling maniacs out there. And two, Tony Khan was a big WCW fan in the early days of AEW when it first started. Even DDP had one final match in AEW. He did, you know, I think a tag team match. He went against like MJF and somebody else on one of the older episodes. And we even got to see Sting as well, who hasn't really done any singles matches. Sting is, you know, kind of put Darby Allin over while he's been a part of AEW. And he's had, you know, he has appearances in AEW and he wrestles rarely. Goldberg, though, I feel like it's going to be a similar situation to DDP. I could definitely see the man, you know, having one final match in, you know, pro wrestling. And with WWE, you know, going in a whole new direction and his run kind of being lackluster over there, I definitely see him, you know, going to AEW for one final run because he's going to get paid a lot of money to do it. And even Sting, Tony Schiavone, some of the guys he worked with in WCW are going to be there. Chris Jericho, who I know when he was working in WCW, they didn't really see eye to eye, but later on in pro wrestling, they started to respect one another.
They hated each other. They hated each other even when Goldberg came into WWE. Remember, he was like, you know, that on Raw they were feuding or whatever, and it was either Jericho or Goldberg. One of them threw paint on each other's the other's car, and like, you know, it's been very documented. Chris Jericho and Goldberg do not like each other.
Yeah, but like in the later days, like with Goldberg's last run, Jericho was still doing stuff part-time and
Yeah.
they didn't really have issues. I think behind the scenes, they squashed the beef. The only person that really had legitimate heat and issues with Goldberg was Matt Riddle, I believe, in WWE.
Yep. So, all right. So maybe it is a possibility. You know, I didn't put into all those other factors or whatever that there's a lot of ex WCW guys in AEW. So who out of like throw out some names? Who would you like to see him in the last match with? If I had to pick a name right now, knowing the kind of history and knowing where, you know, they both come from WCW, I would say fucking throw him and Sting, you know, together and at like
Yes.
a pay-per-view or something like that.
Honestly, man, that's like where I was going to get into it. I think Goldberg and Sting, they should have their last match against each other. Two guys that were WCW diehards for that promotion. And remind you, WCW originals as well. They weren't ex WWE guys like Scott
Mhm.
Hall, Kevin Nash, Macho Man, Hulk Hogan.
Yep.
And in WCW, we didn't really have a lot of those at the time. And Sting and Goldberg, they really were ride or die with WCW. So I would not mind them, you know, having their last match against each other. I think that would be really cool, like nostalgia. I think a lot of diehard WCW fans will tune into TNT and watch that on Dynamite. I think it's a
Would
real possibility.
would you now? Here's my question: Because I just mentioned possibly a pay-per-view. Would you put that match on just a random episode of Dynamite, or would you save it for, like, like a pay-per-view? Because I feel like that match would be big. I mean, these two guys who were huge names in WCW, a company that's been out of business for over 20 years, they're finally, like, they're having their last match together. I feel like that's too big of a match just to have on random TV.
That is valid. The only reason why I said regular TV is because TBS, TNT, that's where WCW was broadcast. And I
Mhm.
think, the network would pay AEW a lot of money to have that match on TV as like a main event for one of their episodes of
They
Dynamite.
they could always like, begin a feud and something like that and then, have their last match. The reason I'm saying pay-per-view is because, like, I feel like there's going to be a lot of disappointed people. I don't think people are going to really fuck with the match anyway because people like nowadays are not that big fans of Goldberg.
Mhm.
He's like, he leaves a sour taste in everybody's mouth whenever you mention him in, the IWC. But, like, if it was on TV, there'd be commercial interruptions, it would throw people out of the match. If it's on pay-per-view, bro, you don't have that issue.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And that's the thing, like, when it's all, said and done, the reason why I could see it being on TV as well is because it would be less pressure on both Goldberg and Sting. Because
Mhm,
obviously, there's going to be critics regardless of this happening. And that's the thing. Sting, there has been, reports, and I believe we covered it on an older episode of, the podcast or an extra. Sting, there's reports that he does plan on retiring at the end of this year. So I
mhm.
definitely can see, this happening. And the reason why a lot of, people have bad taste with Goldberg in the IWC, to be honest with you, is because of the way WWE booked his last run. And it was just very dry. It was just, the same
Didn't
crap.
he didn't he
And
injure
he didn't do
didn't
anything
he
special.
didn't he injure Bret Hart back in WCW and Bret Hart had to retire because of him?
He did, yeah.
I feel like that's a huge part of it too. I mean,
Yeah,
I guess.
but he's always had it, but even when he came back to WWE after all those years of being gone after 2004,
Mhm.
there really wasn't any bad taste with Goldberg. A lot of people were very excited to see him go against Brock, and then unfortunately,
I
Brock
feel
was
it
being so dominant, and then Goldberg beats him in 3 seconds. That's what ruined it right there.
I feel like what also ruined it was him pretty much burying the Fiend and in Saudi Arabia.
Him burying The Fiend. He also, had a squash match with Dolph Ziggler at a SummerSlam, which I think fans enjoyed that. But like the match that he had with Undertaker at Crown Jewel, that was dog shit. And just his run was really lackluster. Like even his match with Braun Strowman in, the Performance Center at WrestleMania wasn't that good. So
Yep.
Goldberg really just hasn't, had a good run in WWE. And I think if he's going to have a last match, AEW, in my opinion, is the place. Don't get me wrong. I don't want this to be a whole long thing with
Yeah.
Goldberg. I'm just not the biggest fan of him right now. Like I enjoyed what he did in WCW. I enjoyed what he did in the Ruthless Aggression era. And I wish that he would just hang the boots up. But in AEW, like, I'd be lying to you if I said I wouldn't want one final match for Goldberg because I think every pro wrestler deserves to have that well-deserved retired match.
Here's what I kind of want. And like I don't want if this does happen. Like this is all speculation. This like nothing is confirmed. Like, it could happen, it could not. This is just me and Donnie just speaking as friends. Um I want there to be some kind of build to this match. If this match happens, I want video packages from their time in WCW, bringing back the
That's going to
nostalgia,
be tough, man.
bringing
Because
back.
WWE has that. And if you think they're going to give that to AEW to make some money, that's not going to happen, man.
Well, I don't see how they would go about bringing excitement to this match because, like I said, everybody has, everybody in every pro wrestling fan pretty much has, they do not like Goldberg. They don't want Goldberg to come back to WWE. So the idea of him going back to AEW, everybody's going to be like, oh, he's just going to make he left WWE. Now he's going to make AEW worse and it's going to be more laughable. how else are they going to drive traffic to want to be interested in this match if they can't build a feud on their time in WCW, which is what this entire match is going to be surrounded on?
Well, I know they can use pictures, I do believe they can, from like house shows and stuff like that. I know they're allowed to do that. And they could sell it because one thing that AEW does a fantastic job doing are their build-ups for their matches. You get to hear wrestling legends, you get to hear some of the voices in pro wrestling like Jim Ross, Excalibur, Taz, and even, some legends at times give their thoughts on the match, and they really give you more of like a sports analytics side
Yep.
of, the pro wrestling, which definitely is something that, is valued and something that I really like about the video packages and the buildups for these AEW pay-per-views. And I think that they could do a fantastic job with Goldberg and Sting. You could bring DDP and have them do some talking. You can have, some of these guys do that. But then again, Goldberg, there's always a possibility he can, go in the ring with a homegrown AEW talent and put them over and take them to the next level. And somebody I would love to see that happen would be Wardlow. There's
I can see
nobody
that
else I would
happening.
want Goldberg to go against than Wardlow, because Wardlow, he has like the build of like a ruthless aggression Batista and pretty much like a WCW Goldberg, the way they've built him, with the Powerbomb Symphony. Reminds me of Goldberg with the spears and the streak. And I think, Wardlow, if Goldberg can take those power bombs from Wardlow and Wardlow, he puts him over, that can really take Wardlow from being just the TNT champion guy to the AEW World Championship easily.
Yep. Wardlow's, he's been stagnant. I think it was horrible that they gave him the TNT title and then he lost it a couple days later. That was a fucking, like, I feel like there's no other way you could have buried somebody worse than that. But now here's what I'm gonna do, a little swerve, okay? Because this more so involves WWE with what I'm gonna say.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we're gonna be talking about Bray Wyatt later on in this episode. We don't know what's going on with him. Apparently, he's not gonna be at Mania. We'll get to that in a little bit. But they're still looking for an opponent for Lashley. What if they do say, "Fuck it, Bill. We'll give you one last match against. It's gonna be 3-4 minutes, go out, fucking do your thing, and that'll be the last match." They could potentially sign him to a 1-day contract.
That is a real possibility there. For me, I just think Goldberg deserves to have a retirement match. I know on the We Are Wrestling channel, I tend to, crack jokes at him, call him Goldberg, and, I haven't really been the biggest fan of his run, but as, a legend in the business, especially what he did in WCW, besides, the Bret Hart injury, which in wrestling, unfortunately, this stuff happens. It's, risky getting into the business.
Look at what happened to Big E.
But, with Goldberg, that's the thing. He deserves to have one final match. And I think, if that's what happens here, I don't think a lot of people are going to be, criticizing AEW for it. There's going to be those WWE trolls like Ben out there that's going to, be like, oh, it's another ex-WWE guy. But, like, I think the die-hard wrestling fan, especially a WCW fan like my cousins who don't really watch the sport anymore, but they love WCW, they're going to appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, but like, if he did a one-off in AEW, depending on how it was built, depending on how it was set up, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to it. I'm one of the very few people that marked out when he came back because I didn't see him ever coming back. Like once he left in
Same
05,
here.
like I thought he was done. Like he's been doing movies, he's been doing podcasting and reality TV and all this. I never saw him coming back to WWE. So when he did come back, I marked the fuck out. But
And that's the thing, man. There's a lot of possibilities that AEW could do because they also have veteran guys that have worked with Goldberg in the past, like Chris Jericho, for example. They can do that because there's history there. Even another guy that they could also have Goldberg go against, Jeff Jarrett. That's a possibility because Jeff Jarrett's a veteran too. And Goldberg can beat him. And, pretty much have a win in his final match. But for me, with the retirement match, I always felt like the wrestler should put somebody over. And that's like where I want Goldberg to do. Like, as much as I would love to see him and Sting just have that one final match, I rather see him go against a guy like Wardlow, put him over, because that can take Wardlow to the world title picture where he belongs.
But again, like I said, like, not, we're talking about this topic a little bit too long. But like,
I agree.
what if Goldberg, WWE does call him and give him a 1-day contract, and he faces Lashley at WrestleMania and he puts Lashley over. Lashley wants a WrestleMania match. We're not sure what's going on with Bray Wyatt. I mean, you have Bill Goldberg who wants to have a retirement match. What a better way than that WrestleMania putting over Lashley? I mean, you gotta look at all the possibilities, and I feel like it's more of a possibility for WWE to have him, have a last match at WrestleMania than have him signed for a random match at a company he's never worked for before.
Honestly, for me, I would rather have him have his final match in WWE, because I think that would be the right thing to do. But if WWE, can't come to an agreement with Goldberg, somebody like Tony Khan, I think, could give Goldberg, a solid last match.
We're in agreement. All right, man. Let's move on to the next topic, because we talked 20 minutes about Goldberg.
But before we move on to our next topic, we'll be right back with more We Are Wrestling podcast.
It's gonna be different this year. We're gonna be at Donnie's house again this year.
Not one, but two nights.
2 nights. Yeah, you're definitely gonna want to be there for sure. It's gonna be fucking A1. Be there, be square.
What is going on, everybody? Danny Huckins here, man. You guys are watching the We Are Wrestling podcast. I want to be acknowledged!
We're back. Next Saturday and Sunday, We Are Wrestling. We're going to be doing a 2-night massive live stream, all in person. Danny, myself, Ben, and a bunch of other people. We're going to be doing a 2-night stream, watch along to WrestleMania 39. And you guys are definitely not going to want to miss it. You thought the Royal Rumble was massive? Wait until this WrestleMania stream. And wait until, this coming week, because we got a lot of WrestleMania-related content coming out to the We Are Wrestling channel you're not going to want to miss.
Exactly, man. We got prediction videos. We got potentially, I don't want to spoil it, man. I don't want to spoil it. But obviously, we're going to be doing some predictions for WrestleMania. It's going to be huge, man. Make sure you guys subscribe with notifications turned on, because you guys are not going to want to miss the fucking mayhem, man.
The mayhem. I like that. So moving on now to our next topic on this week's episode of the We Are Wrestling podcast. There are reports that Bray Wyatt is dealing with an illness, which is why he's been absent from WWE TV. So now, what should WWE do with Bobby Lashley heading into WrestleMania? Because, of course, the last few weeks before Bray Wyatt, was off TV, which a lot of us, thought that he walked out because of creative problems and stuff, but it ended up being an illness. They were supposed to be building, a match for Bray Wyatt and Bobby Lashley for WrestleMania. But now with Bray Wyatt, being on the shelf, what are they going to do with Bobby Lashley going into Mania, you think?
Well, we just talked about it a few minutes ago, the possibility of maybe Goldberg getting signed to a 1-day contract and, doing that. I've heard LA Knight's name getting thrown around. But we don't know what's going on with Bray Wyatt. Maybe we have Uncle Howdy, take Bray Wyatt's place, Bo Dallas, Taylor Rotunda. Maybe Bray Wyatt does show up, and maybe something happens. Maybe this is a swerve. Maybe he comes back as some kind of entity or something like that. who knows what's gonna happen, bro? Like, there's so many like Bray Wyatt is so unpredictable, and I've heard a lot of different reports on like, this illness or whatever. I've heard that, it's potentially COVID related and that, it was sort of the same thing that Keith Lee was dealing with, and it was like side effects or whatever that dealing with his like heart issues or something like that. Obviously nothing has been confirmed, so it's just a rumor as of now. Um, but I mean, there's so many different possibilities that we could go through. Now, I don't I hope it's not LA Knight for the simple fact that if it does get announced that it's going to be LA Knight, then I don't think we're going to be seeing Steve Austin. And I can't think of anybody better who would, make LA Knight look like $1 billion than Steve Austin.
Definitely doing a segment with Steve Austin would really put LA Knight even more over than he already is.
Mm-hmm.
I think, with Bobby Lashley, they should forget the Bray Wyatt feud with him. Like, it wasn't working. Just let Bray Wyatt, recover. Let him come back after Mania and do another program with somebody else. Now, with Bobby Lashley going into WrestleMania, I do think they should have him come out, issue an open challenge, obviously, because, of him being the almighty. He should, definitely be on WrestleMania, because it just wouldn't make sense if he was just on the sideline, just waiting for something.
You
So
could do
have him,
this.
show up at WrestleMania, and I think he should, go against, I don't know. What do you think, Danny?
I was just because I don't know why I didn't mention this a minute ago. I sort of did, and then I didn't mention this part of it. What if it's Uncle Howdy against Bray Wyatt, and we finally get the Uncle Howdy reveal, and that leads to Bray Wyatt returning on that the SmackDown after, or something like that.
That's the thing, man. I just think they should squash it completely with, the whole Bray Wyatt, Bobby Lashley thing. I think that, Bobby Lashley going into this WrestleMania, it's tough because, like, there really isn't anybody crazy. Honestly, for me, one person that I honestly would like to see Bobby Lashley go against for an open challenge would be AJ Styles. He's supposed to be, healed up, ready to go.
We know that Randy Orton, again, we're another topic that we're going to be talking about. They're flying him into WrestleMania, or at least for WrestleMania weekend. Nobody there's like, it hasn't been confirmed if he's going to be active or anything. People, they're not, they're having a smaller WrestleMania week/weekend. I feel like on the We Are Wrestling channel, our WrestleMania week is going to be bigger than WWE's. From a lot of the reports that I've read over
Oh
last
no,
week.
all the TikTokers, Danny, they're gonna come after us after you said that. Oh no.
Well, if you're gonna come after us, follow us, bitch.
Honestly, man, like Bobby Lashley, I think for me, like if there's anybody that's like worthy to go against the Almighty, it would be the Phenomenal One. I think that AJ Styles would get a huge pop coming back at WrestleMania, and eventually this could lead to a feud with the OC and the Hurt Business.
They could. Or you could throw Bobby Lashley into Brock Lesnar and Omos and make it a triple threat. At least then I feel like the match will be a little bit more watchable than it is now.
It's crazy, man. I saw like a thing on wrestling Twitter. Dude, Omos has been like wrestling some pretty solid opponents the last few WrestleManias.
Yeah, and his matches never go past 2 minutes, bro.
He wrestled the tag match with AJ Styles his first WrestleMania. So he got to work with the Phenomenal One. Then he gets to work with Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania after Lashley, coming off his WWE title win. And now he gets to work with Brock Lesnar. Holy shit.
And Bobby Lashley has worked with Brock Lesnar and Omos. So, I mean, if
and that's
anything,
the thing, man. That's
it kind of
makes
sense to make them
crazy to me.
It kind of makes sense for them to throw Bobby Lashley's name in there, make it a triple threat match.
But you would think, like, working with the Phenomenal One, working with the Almighty, working with, the Beast Incarnate, you would think that he wouldn't be as green as he is.
Bro, I've been saying that all along, man. There's nothing that's gonna, if working with somebody like AJ Styles, bro, people seem to think that AJ Styles has only been around like 10 years. AJ Styles was in WCW like 3 or 4 years before he went to TNA. He was with WCW. He wasn't a big name in WCW, but he was with WCW when WCW was bought by WWE. He's been in the business a long time. Working with somebody like him, and not even like working against somebody, working in a tag team, traveling with this fucking guy, possibly training with this guy, if working with him
Getting
like
point
that,
of views from
if
him
if
too.
working like that is not going to make you a better performer, bro, you literally have no fucking business in the pro wrestling industry. Because if you can't get better working with somebody like AJ Styles, bro, you're hopeless at this point.
He's even got a mouthpiece, Danny, and he's still trash.
I feel like they put fucking MVP with Omos just to get MVP on TV. Because what else were they gonna fucking do after the Hurt Business broke up?
Should have kept him with friggin' Bobby Lashley. They should have never broke up the Hurt Business from the beginning.
They should have kept fucking Leo Rush with fucking Bobby Lashley. That little motherfucker could talk.
Oh, that was great, man. Honestly, like I really loved like his pairing with Lashley. The almighty Bobby Lashley.
that little motherfucker could talk, bro.
He was really good with Bobby Lashley, though. But that's the thing, like, with Lashley, I think a perfect, surprise match would be AJ Styles. Honestly, like, I'd be okay with that. But we're going to have to see what happens, moving forward.
We still have Monday Night Raw, and we still have SmackDown next week, man. We have 2 shows. We have 2 shows left before WrestleMania.
Anything can happen.
I just hope nothing too crazy. And, I mean, it's not one of the topics, but we should probably announce, since we're on sort of a WrestleMania discussion, that the first match kicking off WrestleMania is going to be Austin Theory and John Cena. It got announced on SmackDown.
That's the perfect way to start off WrestleMania, honestly.
Starting off fucking strong, bro.
Very strong. And if you're going to put, John Cena and Theory, like, in a match order, putting them at number 1 might be, like, the best way to, set an example of, a WrestleMania moment. Set an example for this classic WrestleMania that we're about to be witnessing.
Exactly. And, like, this is one of the matches that everybody's looking forward to, because everybody wants John Cena to beat the hell out of Austin Theory because, he's arrogant, he's this and that, so it's going to be a great match. And you got to start off strong. And I hope to fucking God that they end strong. End how you begin, man.
Exactly.
You got to start off strong. Maybe it gets a little rough in the middle, obviously, with Omos and Brock Lesnar. But I hope the main event, Roman Reigns and Cody, lives up to its fucking potential, bro. Because that's like
same with the tag match too, with Sammy and Kevin versus the Usos.
Fuck Rhea Ripley. Fuck Charlotte Flair. I'm saying this now. I like Charlotte. I like Rhea Ripley. Fuck Charlotte Flair. She doesn't
you're about to
be
say
in the
you
main
like
event.
Charlotte Flair.
I caught myself though, man.
You
I'm
did.
getting tongue-tied.
This close, Danny. This close.
Then you would have clipped it and put it all over social media.
I would have clipped it for my own personal social media, Danny.
But so fuck Charlotte Flair. She doesn't deserve to be in the main event. The main event for night 1 needs to be the tag team match, bro. What bigger story than the Usos versus Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, bro? That needs to be the fucking main event. I don't want Charlotte in the main event just for the sake, it's Ric Flair's daughter. She wants to be the second woman in history to main event WrestleMania. Fuck that, man. Always put the biggest stories in the main event. That's all I'm saying.
Always. Well said. Here's the thing. And this is what I've said in my, wrestling reaction videos on the We Are Wrestling YouTube channel. Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley, I think that this is going to be a better match than what they had in, the Performance Center. I think it has the potential of being a very good match. But I think if they... Hold on, Danny. Hold on. Let me finish. Here's the problem now. All that momentum for this match that has potential of being a really good match, probably one of Charlotte's best matches. It's not going to be as good if they put it in the main event. They need to have Sammy and Kevin versus the Usos for the main event. Keep Charlotte and Rhea in the middle of the show or even before the main event, because I think putting the expectations on both of them to have a better match than a storyline that's been going on for over a fucking year. It's not going to be possible for them to outshine that, tag team rivalry that's been going on.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. I really want Charlotte and Rhea to not be the main event. I want them to be somewhere, in the middle of the card, because I really think that this is going to be a really good match between the two. But if it's in the main event, it's going to take all that momentum away.
Exactly, because everybody will what's the biggest story on WWE TV even today? It's
Bloodline.
the bloodline storyline. That storyline, bro. Everybody that's in the bloodline, everybody from Roman to Paul Heyman to Solo Sikoa to the Usos to Cody to Sammy to Kevin Owens, everybody is better for the storyline happening. Look how dominant the Usos have been. Look how dominant. It's been a 180. Like Solo Sikoa, how he is now was nowhere near what he was in
Nowhere
NXT.
near where he was in NXT.
This storyline has made everybody better. And I've been saying this on my streams a lot. If it wasn't for the Bloodline storyline, WWE TV would have nothing. Literally nothing. But this storyline is so captivating. It spawned storylines into Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens and their friendship over the last 20 years.
And they added Cody in there as well.
They added Cody in
and
there.
Made it work.
They're adding the Usos and their rivalry with Sammy and Kevin Owens. We got Solo Sikoa having somewhat of a rivalry with Cody Rhodes over what happened this past week. And we have Roman and Cody. We have Paul Heyman, who is obviously the mouthpiece, and he's very good at what he fucking does. This needs to be the main event, bro. I won't accept anything else. It needs to be the main event for night one. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens versus the Usos for the tag titles. Main event night 2, Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. I will not accept anything else because nothing else deserves that. Nothing else should be in that spot.
Absolutely agree. Couldn't have said it any better. But before we get into our next topic, we'll be right back with more We Are Wrestling podcast. No! How is Nickelodeon Guts number 5? Wow!
What is going on, guys? It's Ben here, the Lone Ranger, and you guys are watching We Are Wrestling Podcast.
We're back. Our next topic on this week's episode of the We Are Wrestling Podcast, there are reports that WWE is bringing Randy Orton in for WrestleMania weekend. What do you think they should do with Randy Orton? Will he be coming back at Mania? Are they going to be waiting? What should they do with Randy Orton?
I'm one of the very few people that I don't think he's going to be on the Mania card. I do feel like all the matches pretty much have been solidified. We even found out some more information tonight regarding WrestleMania and, placements of matches and more matches being announced or whatever. I'm not going to spoil anything because obviously you do your reactions, the following day. But you'll definitely know what I'm talking about. I do think he's going to be in doing a lot of media. Because obviously, even with Randy Orton being gone for as long as he has, bro, he's the poster child for WWE. He's almost on the level of an Undertaker or Triple H. Even if you're not a pro wrestling fan, you know who Randy Orton is.
He's the first class Hall of Famer.
A John Cena, even though he never transitioned to Hollywood or whatever. So even if Randy's been off TV for most of the year in 2022, he's still popular enough to where you can have him do media, you can have him do appearances at radio, you can have him do autograph signings and meet and greets. You know what I mean? Because I'm sure a lot of people are gonna want to meet him and get that opportunity or whatever. It's one of the best things about going to a pro wrestling show, especially WrestleMania, even though we've never had the chance to go. Hopefully that happens next year, but who fucking knows at this point.
In Philadelphia.
But now here's where things get tricky. Now, could he be cleared? It's a very real possibility. There's a reason why. I feel like there's a reason why Riddle hasn't come back yet.
I don't want RK Bro to be together when he comes back.
I feel like they're both gonna return at the same time. Maybe still, team up for a little bit and do a sort of a they're going to end up splitting, they're going to end up feuding or something. I wouldn't do a feud right away because it doesn't necessarily make sense. I would have them, at least for a month or two, have them, continue as a tag team, or at least have some kind of partnership, not necessarily a tag team, and I would have them slowly, gradually build. Like maybe like Randy's, sick of Riddle shit or whatever. He's, maybe if WWE really wants to push it, they pushed it with Jeff Hardy. They could be, Randy Orton could be upset about, Riddle getting suspended and he was supposed to hold the fort down while he was gone, dealing with his injury and this and that. Like, there's a lot they can do with it. So, I mean, there's always the night after WrestleMania. There's always maybe, closer to Backlash. Backlash is in Puerto Rico. It's the first time since 2005. They're gonna want to stack the card. There's a lot of possibilities there.
So here's the thing with Randy Orton. I don't see him, being at WrestleMania wrestling or making an appearance at, the biggest stage of them all. I think where Randy Orton is going to return, it will be the night after Mania, in my opinion, because it's the fresh start. And Randy Orton, I think during, the weekend, they're, flying him out to, pitch him some ideas that they have for him when he comes back. I do think Randy is cleared by now, but that's just my opinion. It's not 100% confirmed by any of, the wrestling, observers out there or any of like the news outlets. Journalists. Like for me, I think that he is cleared. And here's what I would do if I were WWE, bringing back, the Viper, the Legend Killer, first class Hall of Famer, one of the greatest in the business, Randy Orton. During the night after WrestleMania, Raw after Mania, which I heard Triple H has big plans for it because he wants that, exciting feel to come back, which honestly, I'm very excited to see what happens.
I got to make it up, man.
Last
year was a letdown night after WrestleMania, so he's gonna have to stack it.
Huge letdown. But here's what I would do: I would have Randy Orton attack Riddle in the beginning of the night after Mania in the parking lot. But Riddle, they don't show Randy attacking him. They show, Riddle like laid out in the parking lot. But hold on, Danny, before, you add your thoughts into this. Nobody knows who attacked Riddle. Then, the end of the night, Cody Rhodes, has maybe a fun match with somebody. And that's where Randy Orton hits him with an RKO. But here's what I want. Randy to be wearing a hoodie. He takes the hoodie off. He's bald. I want 2009 Randy Orton back for this feud with Cody Rhodes. And that could be, the match for the WWE Championship at Backlash. And Riddle could be on the sideline until Backlash, where he screws Randy Orton because of the attack that happened the night after Mania. And that's how Cody retains the title. And it's a great first rivalry for Cody as the champion.
Kind of like the whole rivalry between Triple H and Shawn Michaels. Remember, he got before SummerSlam 2002, he got attacked in the parking lot. They weren't sure who it was, and on the surveillance camera, Shawn Michaels was like, "It was you, Hunter."
That's what I want with this Riddle and Randy Orton thing, because guess what? If they do this, Danny, they're killing two birds with one stone.
They got to do it right, though.
They have to do it right. But honestly, I really would not complain if they did this, because Randy Orton, attacks Riddle. So there you go. You have a way of breaking up RK Bro. And with Riddle screwing Randy at Backlash with Cody Rhodes, winning, that leads to Randy Orton's feud with Riddle for the next couple months. And then Cody can, move on.
Yeah, I mean, if that were to happen, I'd be game for it. Is there like a date for when Backlash is? Like how long in between like WrestleMania and Backlash do they have?
I think I want to say like the beginning of May. I could be wrong. I think it is the beginning of May.
So it's about a month time. I mean, I feel they could tell that story in a month if they do it consistently. You know what I mean? I feel like
that's something WWE does do. They do it consistently. AEW, on the other hand, they do not do consistently. Like Adam Cole came back for a little bit. He was freaking gone for a couple weeks, and then he shows up this past Wednesday.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, you got to look at everybody that WWE has signed to their company. The only people that are in like we have Dominic and Ray, in Judgment Day, we have Balor and Edge, and we have the Bloodline. That out of everybody that they have signed, those are like the only, 3 or 4 that are in main storylines. Like, I want this to be done right. I want it to be, must see TV, if that makes sense. And I just over the years, I have lost faith in WWE. I'm starting to lose faith in AEW, even though I still like it. I do. I sort of let AEW do its thing because I look at WWE as more the entertainment side, and I look at AEW as professional wrestling.
There's a
That's
difference
what I look.
between sports entertainment and pro wrestling. This is
Yeah,
something I feel like me and you always say here on the We Are Wrestling channel, that they're so different. And like they're different. And that's why like there's no such thing as a WWE versus AEW war that Ben and all the wrestling marks out there try to make it be.
I guarantee you, everybody in WWE watches AEW pay per views, and I guarantee you, everybody from AEW, they're all going to be watching WrestleMania. I guarantee you, especially with Cody being in the main event. I
Well,
guarantee it.
one person that I can guarantee you doesn't watch AEW is Kevin Nash and The Undertaker. Did you see that on Twitter?
Yeah, they made a pact to never watch AEW
Yeah, and then
again or something.
Undertaker, and then there was like a picture of Wheeler Yuta like putting like in the sharpshooter with like Mox and all the blood pouring on him. And then Undertaker comments on the picture and writes, "Huge pop." Such a troll.
The thing is, bro, these guys came from the Attitude Era, man, where they had fucking bra and panty matches. They had fucking Mae Young strutting out there fucking half naked. They had, women getting put through tables. They had fucking blood out the wazoo. Remember how many times did Austin bleed when he was in a match with The Undertaker? So like I don't see there's nothing different that AEW is doing that WWE didn't do back then.
Well,
That
here's the
that
thing. A lot
these
of the
guys
old
were a
school,
part of.
here's the difference between old school and new school. And usually Chaz and I, we talk about it every Monday on, the We Are Wrestling channel, old school versus new school.
Check it out.
Here's the thing. So when, the difference, here's the thing. Back in the day, all right, there was a lot more, politicking back then. And back then, a lot of them, abused painkillers. They, abused drugs, alcohol. And, the locker room was a little bit more tougher. Nowadays, I think Undertaker said this actually. Like, you have guys in the locker room playing video games.
Yep. Yeah,
We're in different times.
he said on the Joe Rogan podcast that everybody in the locker room is soft nowadays. But the thing is, again, like, AEW is not doing anything that these guys haven't done. So I don't understand why. And we're getting off topic, but I feel like it is need to be said because I haven't been able to voice my opinion about it. I don't understand why these guys, and like I love Taker, I love Nash, I love Austin, like they're legends. I respect the hell out of them. Like I'm still like nothing. My view of them is not going to change over this shit. Because I don't give a fuck if they watch it and don't watch. I'm a fan of pro wrestling. I'm gonna watch AW and WWE. I don't give a fuck what people have to say about it. But again, what they're doing in AEW with like the blood and like all that like hardcore s kind of stuff. I mean, Taker, Steve Austin, Rock, Triple H. I mean, Triple H used to get beat in the head with fucking 2x4s with barbed wire. Like, there's nothing that AEW is doing that's different than what they were doing in the Attitude Era. The only
Well, one
difference
of the
was
biggest
the year.
differences is the lack of storylines. Like, these characters in the Attitude Era, Danny, compared to the AEW roster, were larger than life.
Exactly. I'm not comparing AEW to the Attitude Era. Trust me. The Attitude Era is my favorite. I will pick that era over any other era in pro wrestling. Like that was where there was no bigger market for pro wrestling than in the fucking Attitude Era, bro. Like that was the end all be all of pro wrestling, in my opinion.
The last thing I'm going to say, though, about AEW, the last couple weeks, I've actually enjoyed their episodes. Like, it really feels like
Yeah.
old school AEW to me. Like, the crowd, they have the lights, more on the crowd like they used to. And like they're actually booking more AEW originals on their shows. And I'm noticing like a pattern the past couple weeks with AEW. It feels more structured.
Yeah, it is. And I enjoy the shows. I mean, I enjoy some episodes more than the others. I'm not gonna like everything, obviously. I do like the in-ring aspect or whatever. Like I said, WWE sports entertainment, AEW's pro wrestling, that's just the way I look at it. I just don't I just don't like, when a lot of these legends or whatever that have been through this, make fun of, make smart remarks online, or, make fun of a certain company for doing the same exact thing that they fucking did to make a name for themselves. It just doesn't make sense to me. You know what
Yeah,
I
and that's
mean?
the thing, like for me, that doesn't make sense as well. Like the way that they come at, today's wrestling, because not everything was perfect in their era. Like Undertaker, yeah, during the Attitude Era, Ruthless Aggression was great, but there also were, some cons, like during New Generation WWE, when Undertaker was wearing, the purple. There was there was one SummerSlam where the Undertaker went against an imposter Undertaker. Even, like you had characters like the Goon, Doink the Clown,
Mhm.
Duke the Dumpster. Like you had all of these, weird, wacky characters because at the time WWE couldn't adjust. Like not everything was perfect in any era of wrestling.
Yep.
And that's something I think the old timers don't really, realize.
Yeah. Like I said, my view on Taker and them are, they rode the miles. They fucking, they put in the work. They have the right to say whatever the fuck they want.
Yes,
I
they
just
do.
don't think it's professional to make fun of another company for doing the same exact thing that you did, so many years ago. It just doesn't make sense to me. But
Yeah, no, absolutely. But, getting back into, Randy Orton for WrestleMania weekend, I think, a lot of people are getting a little too excited. I think Randy Orton does come back night after Mania, and I really hope they do, what I just pitched, because honestly, you're killing two birds with one stone. Cody and Randy, they got history. Riddle and Randy, they've been a tag team for, the past like year and a half. And honestly, if I were them, I'd seriously pull the trigger on this because you can
uh,
create multiple captivating storylines out of it, because that's something WWE really is going to have to do after this
or
WrestleMania because of the bloodline.
or what you could do, and I really like your idea. I really do. And I hope they go in that sort of direction. But my only thing is they've kept Riddle off of TV since the beginning of January. Would they really bring him back after all this time and immediately, like the first like 15 minutes, take him off of TV again for another month?
Yep, because here's what they would do. You would start off in the parking lot, like you can have Riddle on the scooter basically doing his thing. The crowd's going to get a little bit of a pop out of that because they're going to be like, "Oh!" because they see Riddle back, and then, like person can be like, masked up like completely covered in black and attack him.
Or you could do something. You could do that. I would have vignettes for Randy Orton return. Like not so you know who it is, but just like vignettes, like, oh, somebody's coming. I wonder who that could be. I would obviously have Riddle come back. Night after WrestleMania. For Cody Rhodes' first title defense, if he wins, apparently WWE they have not made up their mind on if Roman's going to retain or not. A week away from the fucking show, bro. They don't know the outcome of the match. I mean, that's not that good of a sign. I don't know about you. I would have Gunther face Cody Rhodes at
No, not yet. Not
not
yet.
yet. You don't think so?
Nope. Let's save, like I've been saying this for the longest time. Save that for the Survivor Series. I want Gunther to go into the next WrestleMania as, WWE champion. And I think, having them as the final two in the Royal Rumble, instead of just having it be a couple months later, let's wait a little bit because timing is everything. And I think
Mhm.
Survivor Series would be the perfect place for a villain like Gunther to get the championship from the American Nightmare, Cody.
Yeah. I don't know. I would just like for some vignettes to play, like, and I feel like with a character like Randy Orton, like as iconic as he is and how as long as he's been in the business, I feel like there's a lot of creative stuff you can do to make it like, anonymous and like not like have an idea that it's Randy Orton, but not knowing if it's Randy. You know what I'm if you know what I
Like
mean?
snakeskin, like
Like
stuff like that. I get
I
what you're saying, and that's something, for me, I'm all for vignettes. I always talk about them, and I think I talk about them a little too much because you and Ben, you guys would be coming at me a lot when I talk about vignettes.
unless that's because there's sometimes I don't feel like vignettes are needed. It doesn't mean I don't enjoy them. I love vignettes. But I would have vignettes play, but I would still have Riddle get attacked in the parking lot. And maybe he's off of TV for a week or two. And then he comes back and who comes back, cuts a promo, he's like on a mission to find out who attacked him or whatever. Vignettes continue to play. And then we finally get a reveal on screen, maybe a figure in a black hoodie or something. And it turns out that it's Rand. Like, bro, there's so much you can do, man. So much
There's
you
a
can do.
lot of things they can do, but we're gonna have to wait and see with what happens with that.
Something tells me if the Bloodline storyline continues after Mania, if Cody wins, something in my mind tells me that Roman Reigns is gonna order Solo Sikoa to have a match with Cody at Backlash.
Or I
don't
could
know.
see this happening, like if they continue it, there are reports that they could be having a 6-man tag match at Backlash. Could be Cody, Sammy, and Kevin versus the Usos and Solo Sikoa. I
They
have
could.
seen
They
stuff
could.
like that. Or even,
They could.
Roman Reigns instead of
They
Solo
could.
Sikoa. We'll have to wait and see. But before, we get into our last topic before the main event topic for this week's episode, we'll be right back with more We Are Wrestling Podcast. Saturday, June 17th, 2023, both Captain's Corner and Zombie Hideout are bringing professional wrestling back to the New England area with the Wrestling Classic 3, which will be a wrestling convention bringing in some of the best wrestlers throughout the years at this event in Springfield, Mass. at the South End Community Center. You can meet Hall of Famers Kurt Angle, Lex Luger, DDP, AEW stars, The Guns, and so many more classic stars to be announced on Saturday, June 17th. And for the first time ever, We Are Wrestling. We're going to be a vendor. We're going to be working with Zombie Hideout and Captain's Corner with this event. Best One Donnie has had the opportunity to go to both the Wrestling Classic 1 and 2, and let me tell you, the Wrestling Classic 3 is going to be like no other. And if you want to, have an opportunity to meet some of the best in the business, they will be in Springfield, Mass. on Saturday, June 17th. South End Community Center in Springfield, Mass. Also, the We Are Wrestling team will be there with a table. We'll be having merchandise, and we'll also be giving away some stuff as well. And of course, you already know, we'll be vlogging as well. You're definitely not going to want to miss this event. Get your tickets now.
Action.
What is up? We are Wrestling Maniacs. I'm better than Ben. I'm better than Danny. You know the usual. The thousands of subscribers. It's recording, bro. Oh, it's recording. Okay. 3, 2, 1. What is up? We are Wrestling Maniacs out there worldwide. I'm the host with the most, the best one, Donnie, and you're listening to the We Are Wrestling Talk Show. Fuck the Lone Ranger and fuck Danny Huckins, because you're here to listen to the best one, Donnie, on the We Are Wrestling Talk Show. The host with the most, baby. Woo! But moving on now to our last topic before our main event topic on this week's episode of the podcast. According to the Wrestling Observer News, Dave Meltzer's show, Tony Khan pitched an idea to Miro back in September for Full Gear to work with Hangman Adam Page. This rivalry would have kicked off with Miro and Paige being the last two in a battle royal that took place on Dynamite. Paige would have threw Miro out, leading to the match at Full Gear. Miro refused the idea. So now with Miro and AEW having a hard time trying to bring him back, what should they do moving forward? Because Miro does have about 3 years left on his contract, and we have not seen him in almost a year now in AEW.
Yeah, I don't. To be
And
honest,
you've been
bro,
very vocal about Miro.
Usually I'm very good at remembering when they had their last match or whatever. I can't remember what his last match was. I want to say it was him losing the TNT title, but I could be wrong. Um, I still think it's CJ Perry, man. I still think his wife was a huge part of this. Because the reason why they kept him off TV, I feel like now he does have 3 years left on his deal or whatever. But as you know, CJ Perry, she did an interview with Entertainment Weekly or something like that, and somebody had asked her about Miro because he was off TV for a while, and I guess they asked her if he was going back to WWE, and obviously she had to open her mouth. She didn't have to; she wanted to, and she said, "Well, they all go back to WWE, don't they?" That's signaling that maybe that's where Miro wanted to head once his contract expires. So with that being said, I would be TK too. Keeping this guy off TV. As much as I like Miro, as much as I think he our show can benefit from having him on. Like I'm not gonna put all my effort into this guy, build him up into a superstar, and then once his contract expires, he's gonna go back to work in Connecticut. So I don't fully want to blame TK for the situation. I don't necessarily blame Miro either, because if you don't like the creative direction that you're going, then why are you gonna waste your time doing this if you don't really necessarily believe in it? So there's a lot of things that's besides this creative decision, wrapped up in it. You know what I mean?
And that's the thing. Like, I understand from both sides because a professional wrestler is usually known as an independent contractor, and you have to look out for yourself and what's best for your career.
Mhm.
And Miro has not really had the best career in WWE or AEW. And right now, in this, this is a shitty situation for Miro because in WWE, he was very over, doing the whole Bulgarian thing, doing the whole Russia thing with the United States Championship until, John Cena beat him at WrestleMania 31. Then,
Rusev Day.
he lost a lot of momentum until, he turned babyface and did the whole Rusev Day thing with Aiden English. And, he picked some momentum there, but still, for my opinion, wasn't as good as his first run that he had, when he first got brought up with the United States champion, undefeated streak. Lana, by his side, looked like $1 million, could have definitely been a top heel, pretty much booked like Gunter is right now.
Mhm.
That's what they could have done with him, but they fumbled it. And then, in AEW, he had a horrible debut as the best man for, Penelope and Kip, who I think deserve a lot more than what they're doing right now. And, then Miro went on to being a dominant TNT champion, booked great, defending the
Redeemer.
championship constantly on, AEW TV. And then, he loses the momentum after losing the title, just like the United States title. And Miro is one of those guys that I think both WWE creative and AEW creative will not have anything for him, regardless if he goes back to WWE or not. I think, his best days are, behind him, and it sucks to see that, but Miro's in that situation because of what, he's done in AEW and WWE. And it's pretty much a situation that Andrade is also in because this guy, had some momentum in WWE with NXT, lost it, and then, went to AEW, and pretty much his stock value went down, just like Miro's. So that's
Yep.
why, Miro is trying to be very precautious of himself, because at the end of the day, he's technically an independent contractor. But then I understand it from Tony Khan's perspective as well, because he's running AEW, and what's the point of, booking Miro very strong for him, to maybe disagree with you on something, walk out, take another, almost year break, and, wait until the contract is up.
Exactly. And I I see, it's a very tricky situation, because if you would have asked me 6 months ago, I would have laughed if Miro went back to WWE. But with Triple H booking, and with so many talent coming back, and obviously WWE has more TV time than AEW. AEW has 2 hours of Dynamite. They have an hour of Rampage. They want to bring in another hour show on Saturdays, which
Oh,
is
your new
fucking
favorite show
ridiculous.
coming up, Danny, Collision.
Oh my god, bro! Don't get me fucking started
No
again.
beach trips for you this summer.
Oh, and they have obviously, Dark and Dark Elevation. But I feel like I feel like he would be booked a lot better in WWE, because if I remember correctly, Triple H was always very high on Rusev. I think when Rusev first came in, Triple H actually asked to work with him, because when Rusev came in, I think that Triple H was still somewhat of an active competitor, if I remember
He
correctly.
was doing some stuff.
So I think I remember Triple H wanting to work with him when he first came in, because he liked his size, he liked how his character or whatever. So Triple H has always looked very highly on Miro. Um, do I want him in AEW? Yes, because I feel like Powerhouse Hobbs, there's Samoa Joe, there's Wardlow. There's so many guys that he could have bangers after bangers after bangers with. You know what I mean? But again, if he does want to leave, why would TK waste his time, his energy, and his money booking this guy and building him up really strong and making his stock go up and making him a household name, just for him to take all that popularity and go to another company? And even though WWE, there is no war between them, I mean, you don't want somebody that you put all your time and energy into somebody, and then just to have them go somewhere else. You know what I mean?
I know Tony Khan doesn't like doing this, but I think it's best that him and Miro, they come up with a contract, agreement that, Miro can get out of his AEW deal and move on, because clearly they both aren't going to, come up with an agreement. Like, Miro got pitched an idea to work with Hangman Adam Page, and that would have been, a great storyline for him to come back and even, in the long run, be put over in this situation against Hangman.
Yeah.
And here's my problem now with Miro, if these reports are true, because Dave Meltzer
We
knows
don't
a
know.
lot in the business, but it's not always 100% with these reports. I do
Mhm.
believe them, but they're still not 100% true. Now, here's the thing. With Miro, here's the problem that I have here with this situation. He's not being a team player. And something, in professional wrestling, I always praise, those locker room leaders. I always praise those team players. And I'm
Yep.
sorry, but in this business, yes, there's times where you have to put yourself over, but there's other times where you have to put other people over. And Miro complaining about getting eliminated in a fucking battle royal. Come on. You're going to make a big deal because you're in the final two of the battle royal, remind you. And you're getting a pay-per-view match, something that 100 other AEW guys that are busting their ass on fucking Dark and Elevation and Rampage and now even Collision pretty soon, and even Ring of Honor now, would love to have an opportunity on the pay-per-view against one of their most popular homegrown talent in Adam Hangman Page. And
Mhm.
instead, Miro, is, worrying about his stock value and not AEW as a whole. And I knew when Tony Khan did these signings with Andrade and Miro, don't get me wrong, I, love Miro. I loved his work in NXT, loved his work in WWE,
Yep.
even loved his work in AEW. But at the end of the day, AEW, they need to be a team. And I knew when these WWE guys were coming to AEW, they were going to be more focused on using AEW as a platform to boost themselves instead of worrying about AEW. And like even Darby Allin in his promo, with the 4 pillars even said, all these, former guys are doing now, they complain on social media and then get what they want. And that's something like with Miro that disappoints me if these reports are true, because at the end of the day, they should be focusing on making AEW the best product, not worrying about themselves as much.
Exactly. And I look at it from both sides, I agree with the talent, I agree with TK. I'm on nobody's side in this situation. When it comes to Andrade, he was built built like $1,000,000 when he first came in. He was in a fancy suit, watches. Like we thought he was everybody was like, "Oh my god, Andrade El Idolo is in AEW now. It's gonna be a fucking a whole movement is gonna be, the whole company is gonna be revolve around him." That didn't last more than a month,
I
and
knew that was going to
you know,
happen too. I
it's
predicted it.
just it's just such a shame, bro. Like I understand where Tony's coming from. But you have to put some of the blame on him too, because he has so many main event caliber superstars or talent, you know. But it's like he doesn't know what to do with them. Like I say, every week I'm watching Dynamite, bro. I see like 2 or 3 matches on the card that I'm like, did that really have to be there? Could that have been on Rampage? Could you have put somebody else in this spot? Like, could somebody else that's of more value use the TV time? You know what I mean? Like, I shouldn't feel that way. You know what I mean?
And that's the problem. There's so much talent in pro wrestling right now that it's very hard to, you can't have 10 world champions. There's
Mhm.
only one.
That's why it's
And
stupid that WWE
there's
has 2
only
fucking titles technically.
2 hours of Dynamite, 1 hour of Rampage,
That
and,
nobody
soon to
watches.
be Danny's favorite show, Collision, which will be 1 hour.
I'm
And
gonna
that's the
I'm gonna
problem. And that's the problem, with AEW. They have, I believe, over 180 people talent signed, and they have all this little time on TV to, put them all out there. I think
exactly.
if I were AEW, I would, cut ties with Andrade and Miro, move on and keep focusing on your homegrown talent and the guys that you're already using, and having these guys, in the long run, not only, put themselves over, but also put your homegrown talent over so that they can grow with the audience as well.
I'll tell you this now, and you can screen record this, you can do whatever you want with this, okay? Everybody knows the disdain that I have with Charlotte Flair. Everybody, it's very well documented on this show, on my live streams. I talk about it every fucking week. I have such a disdain for that woman, and it's fucking, it's retarded. I don't understand. I just hate the fact that some people they have so much talent, but they still constantly rely on who their parents are or who somebody in their family is. I have such an admiration for people like Dominic Mysterio and Ava Rain. Like Ava Rain, she could have anything she wants, bro. I'm The Rock's kid. Do you think anybody would deny her a fucking thing? She doesn't want any mention of her dad in anything that has to do with her wrestling career. Dominic, he was following in his dad's footsteps, totally reinvented himself. He's a heel in Judgment Day. He's doing the best work of his fucking career. I have such an admiration for those people because with as big as their parents are, bro, they could have anything in this fucking world and nobody would deny them a damn thing. Charlotte Flair, on the other hand, everything from her her music, her robe, her demeanor, the way she talks, her championship title reigns, everything with her is her fucking dad, and that's why I can't stand her. And I have every right to. If Andrade were to come back to WWE, Charlotte Flair changes her look up, changes her gimmick up, gets paired with Andrade in some way, maybe some kind of kind of like how Triple H and Stephanie McMahon were back in the day, like a power trip, a power couple. They can have anything.
Nah, man, Andrade's never going to get to that status.
No,
He's
but
overrated. I'm sorry.
overrated maybe.
Great
But
in the
I'm
ring, but
saying
that's it.
if they paired him and Charlotte up in some way, and maybe we get feuds with Montez and Bianca Belair. and make storylines really compelling. I feel like that would do wonders for everybody involved.
Here's the thing. Like, I don't like that she tries to be like her dad a lot. I will give you that. But one thing I will say, and I've always said this about Charlotte Flair, I might not be the biggest fan of her. Yes, I've enjoyed, her run since coming back as, like pretty much like the way she was booked in the beginning of NXT, where it like wasn't fully Ric Flair, if that makes any sense. I'm probably not making any sense, but fuck it. Here's the thing. With, Charlotte Flair, the reason why she got into the business, that's what I respect about her, because her brother, Reed Flair, he passed away. He, was trying to become a professional wrestler. He did, a lot of work, all over the world, doing matches and stuff. And, he died pretty young. And Charlotte Flair, wanted to, pretty much live his dream in honor of him and become a WWE superstar. Obviously, you might, not like her in the ring and stuff, but like you do have to respect why she got in the business. It actually wasn't her dad, it was her brother.
I do respect that, and I know all about the whole Reed situation. Trust me, I'm very knowledgeable about it. And like my thing does nothing to do with her being a performer. It has nothing to do with her being, as talented. I will say she's talented. There's no denying it.
Oh, it's the way that she's booked.
I hate, bro. She was gone for 8 months on a vacation, not injured, nothing. She went on her honeymoon. And she just wanted time off. She instantly came back, immediately wins the title. Everything about her is her dad, bro. She needs to get out of her dad's shadow. She will always be known. She'll be known as Charlotte, but she'll always be known as, oh, that's Ric Flair's kid. That's Ric Flair's daughter. Because she doesn't get
with
that
her
separation.
But that's the thing, man, with her being, right now in one of, the strongest women divisions in WWE history, being a part of the 4, horsewomen, Charlotte Flair, hands down, like if she, retired tomorrow, she would be a first-class Hall of Famer, to be truthful.
All she is to me is Ric Flair's daughter. There's very little separation in that. Like she's talented. Like I said, I can't deny the talent she has in the ring. I just wish she would make a name for herself and be, oh, that's Charlotte Flair. That's Charlotte. You know, she just everything about her is her dad. And I will never understand somebody that has everything. She has all the gifts in the world. But for whatever reason, she wants to just live in the shadow of her dad her entire life. And it drives me up a fucking wall. Because do you realize how many people would cut off their fucking legs to be in the position she's in? And she doesn't take any, she takes it all for granted to me. Like she does.
I don't know. Like, I understand where you're coming from, but I don't know if she takes the opportunities that are given to her for granted. I just think that it's just really bad booking. And I think a lot of them, want her to be the female Ric Flair. And unfortunately in WWE, whoever's, in charge, you got to do, what they want, because at the end of the day, it's their product. Just like AEW with Tony Khan. There's things that are, shitty that Tony Khan wants to do. And unfortunately, some of these wrestlers just have to, suck it up and do it.
Bro, Charlotte Flair, she can have anything she wants. If she wanted to change her fucking name, her outfit, her whatever, she'd be able to do it. There's nobody in that fucking company that's going to tell her no. You know what I mean? That's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that's very interesting, and I'm not going to mention too much. We did hear from, obviously, it's no secret. We record these podcasts on Friday, upload them on Saturday. Tonight on SmackDown, we heard a promo from Charlotte Flair. One thing that was very interesting, I'm not going to tell you what it is because obviously you're going to do reactions, but she apparently somebody in my stream said she mentioned Sasha Banks by name.
Mm-hmm.
And that hasn't really happened before. Like, WWE has done everything they could over the last couple of months to sort of wipe Sasha Banks out of the playing field. The fact that she mentioned Sasha Banks by name on SmackDown without even trying to censor it I'm kind of curious.
There's a lot of things, man, when it comes to wrestling reports, if I'm going to be honest with you, that don't make a lot of sense, because I saw this thing that like Vince McMahon is like back, and like they had someone redo an entire segment because they said the word wrestler, but then Cody Rhodes, in the promo with Roman Reigns, pretty much, they used the word professional wrestler. And
you
it's
know who
there's a lot of things that just don't add
you
up.
know who wrote that report? Dave
Oh,
fucking Meltzer.
yeah, I know. I can't fucking stand Dave Meltzer. Everybody knows that here on the We Are Wrestling channel.
Yeah, but anyway, man, those are my thoughts on Miro. We went on a little tangent, but you know what? It's all fun and games. It gives us more content to talk about for fans to listen to. Let's get on to the main event, man, because I know me and you are fucking exhausted.
Yes. All right. Well, our main event topic for this week's episode of the We Are Wrestling podcast. I think Ben is probably relieved that he doesn't have to talk about this, because anytime we talk about this guy in, the We Are Wrestling group chat on Facebook, Ben will either leave the chat or he will throw a Twinkie fit. So CM Punk has, made some noise this past week. And what better way to make some noise than around WrestleMania time? CM Punk got himself the main event topic on this week's episode of the podcast. We're not talking about WrestleMania, surprisingly. CM Punk calls out Dave Meltzer. So CM Punk took to Instagram to respond from a post from Dave Meltzer on the Wrestling Observer board. So here's what Meltzer said on, the wrestling board. He said, and I quote, "Do you know why they didn't advertise CM Punk versus Moxley longer and why it had a short build? Because Punk agreed to it. Then AEW got a legal letter saying he wasn't down with it and wasn't doing it, and they didn't know if he'd come until Tony Khan put his foot down. There are lots of nice things I can say about him, and you can absolutely agree his position on Moxley was correct, but you can't argue he willingly did what he did to ask in that scenario." But now, in a response, CM Punk said the following on his Instagram story, but then later on deleted it. He said, and I quote, "I wasn't cleared to come back to wrestling yet. Then the plans was to wrestle at a pay-per-view. I sat and listened to Moxley's Rocky 3 idea. I explained how I'd never seen a Rocky movie. And I thought the idea sucked. But if the boss wanted to do it, whatever. He said he wouldn't lose to me. I'd never experienced someone refusing to lose to me. I just laughed. I asked Tony if this is what he wanted. He said yes. He's the boss, so I said okay. But I'd need to be cleared first. They kept saying it could be a squash, so I didn't need to be cleared. I scuffed at that. My health is more important. Dave Meltzer is a liar. Jericho is a liar and a stooge. There were plans, but plans always change, but I'll never put a company above my health ever again." How do you feel about these reports that, with CM Punk, making some noise?
Oh boy! Oh, just when I thought the drama train was over with AEW, man, and it gets no secret, man. I'm a fan of CM Punk. That's not going to change. I'm always I'm into people that are against authority and against the system or whatever. That's just how I was raised. It's how I live my life or whatever. Um, you know, part of me does think these accusations are true, and then part of me doesn't think they are. We obviously know that CM Punk, he was told he had to wrestle back in WWE when he was injured, or he was sick or something like that. And obviously the doctors and WWE apparently weren't authentic with them checking him out, and he had like some kind of infection. Um, so if he was told that he had to wrestle in a squash match, which squash matches are usually maybe 15, 20 seconds long, it's not out of the realm of possibility of being authentic. Like maybe that really did happen. But here's what I have to say on this whole situation, man. Because obviously, I've been very vocal about CM Punk possibly coming back to AEW. All the signs lead to that being a possibility, because if he didn't, TK has more than enough money, bro. He could have easily bought out his contract or, fired him, released him, whatever. And I feel like TK, I mean, we've saw a lot of instances with William Regal recently. Like, he would have done it no problem. That's just the kind of guy I feel like TK is. So the fact that he's been suspended or he's off suspension but out with pay or whatever, like, that makes me think that he's going to come back to AEW, and there's nothing that really anybody can tell me otherwise, unless I find out that he got released.
Well, there are
Then,
reports that CM Punk does want to come back to AEW. Those reports
exactly.
did come out this week.
Exactly. I knew he did because you weren't this entire 9 months that he's been out. You haven't heard any kind of anything from Punk's side being like, oh, he wants to get out of AEW, he wants to leave, he wants to do this, he wants to do that. Even when he had clearance to do so, he never. This is the first time I feel like he's really mentioned anything AEW since his injury and since the brawl out situation. You know,
The thing, and that's the thing, man. When it's all said and done, CM Punk, it was always a roller coaster with me with CM Punk coming back to AEW because of how, serious the whole, brawl out situation was after, the all out thing. And I think, CM Punk, the Elite, they both were in the wrong in their own way. And I really do hope that they actually squash the beef, which, this past Wednesday, unless they did it on purpose, like they had the production truck, if you notice in the beginning, on the truck, it's Nick and Matt Jackson, doing their little, pose, and CM Punk is in the middle, and they actually covered CM Punk's photo with a bunch of like tables and like cloths.
You want to know why I feel like they did that? Because obviously Punk is not ready to come back yet, and if they just outright showed him on the truck, all the crazy speculation that would have happened on Thursday, with Dave Meltzer and Sean Ross Sapp and trying to find out this information, is Punk coming back and all this bullshit. TK probably didn't want his phone blowing up the next day, so having his picture covered up does not scream, oh, he's not coming back to AEW. Like, I understand why they did it. Maybe I'm the only one, but it just makes sense to me.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. But that's the thing, like with CM Punk, like I see where he's coming from, but the thing that I can't really wrap my head around is if CM Punk was really hurt at the time.
He was hurt. Remember, he jumped in the crowd and broke his foot. They wanted him to have one last match and job to Moxley. That was around that time.
Yes, but here's the thing, like for me, what makes it so hard to believe, like after the stuff that happened with CM Punk wrestling hurt in, WWE, because that was some serious shit that happened. Like he got into a whole lawsuit because he spoke out on, Colt Cabana's podcast, Art of Wrestling. And now, talking about, CM Punk, that's the problem that I have here. Like, I don't think, like, if that was that serious, why would CM Punk still wrestle? Regardless. Like, and that's the thing, like, in the last thing he says here, I'll never put a company above my health ever again. Don't do that, CM Punk. Friggin' don't ever friggin' put the company above your health. Focus on your health because we want the best version of you.
That's what he's saying, bro.
That was his choice.
Yeah, he refused to do it. And then Dave Meltzer's coming out with this report saying that, stirring up all kinds of shit, saying that CM Punk didn't want to do it or whatever, this and that. CM Punk, obviously, he's going to do what the boss wants him to do.
Yeah, no, I know CM Punk wanted to do it because if he didn't want to do it, he wouldn't have done it.
The only thing is, why did I understand Dave Meltzer's a journalist, he has a job to do, but it's been 9 fucking months, bro. Out of everything that people have been talking about with the brawl out situation, this and that, why now is this shit coming out? This shit should have came out fucking last year. Why is it just coming out now? I feel like Dave Meltzer is trying to stir up some shit.
Probably because
CM Punk
all he fucking does.
Bro, CM Punk, it's been very documented how how much hatred Eric Bischoff has for Dave Meltzer and says that he's a crook and doesn't do his job properly and all. Like he
doesn't.
did an entire podcast talking about all the facts that Dave Meltzer has gotten wrong in his journalist.
I listened to that on 83 Weeks.
So I am not against CM Punk in this situation. You know what I mean? Like if CM Punk was the only one that
There's only
disagreed with
one thing I
Meltzer-
didn't like on his Instagram post. Why bring fucking Chris Jericho involved in this? The one guy that was friggin' being the most professional during the whole brawl thing.
Well, you remember when Jericho called CM Punk a cancer? Apparently that happened the night of the brawl out situation.
That is true. I understand, but like this is a problem between Dave Meltzer and CM Punk.
Exactly, but I understand where Punk is
Why
coming
can't
from.
this shit happen behind closed doors?
Because
this is not
it's-
helping AEW.
Because Dave Meltzer decided to write up this report 9 months after all this shit fucking happened, bro. Why couldn't it have happened last year? Let it die down a little bit. Now Punk, notice there's a pattern. Punk is slowly, Meltzer's been writing a lot of reports on Punk. He's almost being cleared. He's almost gonna possibly come back to AEW. All of a sudden, he drops this fucking bomb about CM Punk not wanting to job to Moxley, stirring up all kinds of fucking shit. There's a fucking pattern here,
annoying,
bro.
man. It is Dave Meltzer. Dave Meltzer is the freaking problem here, obviously. And like, this is not helping AEW out whatsoever. And that's the big issue I do have with Tony Khan is not only, some of his booking decisions, but it's like really, letting these journalists, control the narrative in AEW. That's the biggest problem here because he's letting fucking stooges and fucking idiots like Dave Meltzer, control how things are going to be narrative.
And like, is Punk in the wrong for speaking out, saying some things? Maybe he is.
But he's he has a right to his own opinion.
Just because this guy's on TV, just because he's a well-known figure, doesn't take away his freedom of speech. If somebody was writing a false report about you, you would say something.
Absolutely,
I feel like these guys in this business, celebrities, movie stars, whatever. If somebody writes something negative about you that didn't happen, and they're just trying to get clicks or whatever on their website, say something. I hate the fact that this guy, he's famous. He needs to live on better standards than just the average human. No, fuck that. If somebody's gonna write something about you, you have every right. They're bringing your name up. You have every right to respond to that person.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. Like, Dave Meltzer, when the hell is the wrestling community just going to stop giving a fuck about this old man that rates matches, gives them freaking golden stars? When are we going to start, like, really starting to, like, put, like, I want all wrestling fans out there to start, listening to Fightful. Start listening to, these other journalists out there that know how to do their job better and they don't play favoritism with people that they like or don't like. Dave Meltzer is a fucking clown. Yeah. I'm just tired of hearing the Wrestling Observer news. I'm tired of hearing about these fucking star rating matches. I'm tired of it because that's what's ruining professional wrestling for all of us.
Yep. And
these stupid fucking stars.
People listen to Dave Meltzer because of how long he's been around and writing, stories about the business or whatever. He's been around since the 80s, obviously.
You know somebody that's been a part of the business for years, Danny? I know you don't like him, but somebody that's been in the business, especially behind Vince McMahon's pocket, Bruce Pritchard. There you go. You can watch his fucking podcast with Conrad Thompson. Something to wrestle.
But apparently, so a new report came out.
So many better journalists than Dave Meltzer.
A new report came out. And, I feel like we should mention it. I don't know if you have it. You can probably find it really quickly. Sean Ross Sapp wrote an entire fucking article on this situation, pretty much agreeing with some of what Dave Meltzer said. Obviously, Sean, Fightful, they do their own research. They have their own sources. They have their own people that they talk to within each company or whatever. And apparently a lot of what, Sean Ross Sapp apparently, corroborated a lot of what Dave Meltzer said. Still, even with that being a thing, I don't think this is necessary to bring up. Why would you wait until the guy's almost cleared to come back to bring up this shit? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Doesn't make sense at all, Danny, and it's disappointing because I've always said this about CM Punk. He gets so much negative, feedback because the man speaks up and, he, voices his opinion. And a lot of people in, this entire world don't like when somebody just speaks the truth. They don't like when somebody, is outspoken because they think that they should just deal with it. And CM Punk has never been that type of person. And I've always hated how, the wrestling media have, always had false, narratives towards CM Punk. Like, regardless, like when he comes back, of course, they make it all positive because that's what, they want, people to feel so that they don't blame the media. But then, of course, when when one little thing happens, then they try to turn this into a bigger thing than what it is. Even before the media scrum, CM Punk was, getting criticism and stuff for certain things that were being done, maybe outside of AEW or what he said about WWE. So he's always had, the wrestling media, outlets out there to journalists putting out false things for, fans like Ben to, give negative feedback to him and, consider him a cancer in a locker room.
Yeah.
It happens with some of, the athletes in the sports field. An NBA basketball player, Kyrie Irving, he's somebody that voices, his opinion, and he gets a lot of criticism for, the way he does things. In the NFL, there's Aaron Rodgers, one of, the biggest, trade guys right now in the NFL. There's a lot of, negative media outlets about him. And that's the thing right now in wrestling. CM Punk is right now pretty much whatever he says, whatever he does, the journalists are going to just have something negative to say about him.
Because since
they don't like him. They put their
since
personal issues involved.
since the brawl out situation, like everybody's been pointing fingers at Punk. Nobody's once really talked about at being, the elite being at fault and stuff like that. It's always been CM Punk or whatever. So, don't I wouldn't look at this as any more than what it is. You know what I mean? I feel like, I still feel like Punk's gonna come back. I mean, he's too much of a money maker for TK to just let, go somewhere else or whatever. No, not saying he's going back to WWE. That's never gonna happen. But I don't understand why. The brawl out happened in what, last June or something like that?
August.
Last August. Why now is this coming up when this was at the beginning? It's been almost a year, bro. Why now is this getting brought up? All the months and months and months of people talking about CM Punk and talking about the brawl out situation. You're saying now once somebody thought to bring this shit up, then they're bringing it up now. Once the shit gets cleared away.
And that's the big problem here, man. Like a lot of these journalists, they personally don't like Punk because Punk will voice his opinion of, journalists. Like he calls out Dave Meltzer all the time. He calls out all these journalists with rumors and news. He's always done it his entire career. And of course, he's ruffled some feathers in his career. Somebody he used to be close with, Seth Rollins. I did a whole episode on hot takes on the We Are Wrestling YouTube channel about it. There's wrestlers out there that, feed into a lot of, the media outlets on Punk. And the last thing I'm going to leave this whole CM Punk situation at is instead, if you are a pro wrestling maniac, you're a We Are Wrestling maniac like us, don't always have your own opinions. Don't friggin' always listen to fucking Dave Meltzer, Sean Ross Sapp, or, you know, the journalists you listen to, or, you know, the Legends podcast that you listen to. Come up with your own opinion. Like, everybody, you know, they all friggin' try to listen to what Dave Meltzer has to say. Like, when he gives a match a star rating, they make it a trending topic on Twitter. Why? Have your own opinion. Like, why do you care about one guy's, you know, opinion when you should be watching it for yourself from start to finish, and you should have your own opinion on it?
Exactly.
And that's the thing. Like, with CM Punk, this whole thing is just so fucking annoying and so stupid. I understand why Ben feels the way he feels about the whole CM Punk thing. But I wish, you know, he would also understand that, like, the whole, you know, wrestling, you know, news outlets and, you know, journalists, they just want to keep putting out negative shit about Punk because they have personal problems with him.
Exactly. And like I said, man, like during this entire brawl out situation, whatever, all I've heard was Punk did this, Punk did that, Punk did this, Punk did that. I haven't heard one say, oh, you know, the Young Bucks did this, Kenny Omega did this, you know, Hangman Adam Page did this, or whatever. It's always been Punk, 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 Punk. So that automatically is a red flag to me. It's like these guys, a lot of these guys have a vendetta against this man for whatever fucking reason. You know, it's not going to change my opinion.
And
but
it
the
all
good
goes
thing-
back to when he left WWE on bad terms at the end of the
Exactly.
day, unfortunately. But let us know in the comment section below, guys, how you feel about the topics that we talked about on this week's episode of the We Are Wrestling podcast. If you guys enjoyed this week's episode, make sure to smash that like button now. If you're not a We Are Wrestling Maniac yet already, subscribe, turn on the post notifications. The link's down in the description below. You can go follow Danny and I on our social medias and other YouTube pages. In addition, you want shorter clips of the podcast, you can go, you know, follow We Are Wrestling over on our social media pages, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We be posting shorter clips of these podcasts on there. You can go check us out on there. And of course, to all the We Are Wrestling Maniacs out there worldwide, WrestleMania week on the channel. We got some awesome content coming your way, and you already know we are taking over. Peace.